Hello everyone, I am finally getting my dahlias prepared and stored for the winter. Now, this is the latest in the season I've ever done it because we have had such an abnormally warm fall so far. I mean, it is the week of Thanksgiving and I am out here very comfortably without a coat on. So you can see how we've not had the normal Chicago fall. In fact, for some of these, I could probably even wait till they died back a little bit longer, but we're going out of town. The 20-degree weather, I think, is coming this weekend, so I am taking care of these today. Now, dahlias are one of my all-time favorite flowers in the garden, and if I can get them to come back over winter, I want to. However, if it was any more difficult than what my current process is, I would probably just treat these as annuals. So let me talk a little bit about overwintering your dahlia tubers. So dahlias are hardy down to zone 8. That is the lowest zone where you'd want to leave them outside to ensure that they will survive the winter. However, I do know people in colder zones, I think even down to zone 6, where they just put a lot of mulch, a lot of tarp over the top of it, and if the winter is mild enough, they will come back. Now, Chicago is zone 6A, so potentially, if I had these in the yard, maybe I would attempt to just cover them up, but when you're growing something in a container, you want to go even 2 zones lower than your current zone if you're planning to keep them outside. So I don't really want to keep any plants outside in their pot without protection unless they are zone 4 or lower, which dahlias do not fall into that category. So for me, all of the dahlias do have to be stored in our garage. Now, luckily, we have the perfect temperature garage for dahlias. So dahlia tubers like to be stored somewhere between 40 to 50 degrees. If it's like 35 or 55, that's fine, but 40 to 50 is really that sweet spot. So our garage has a heater that kicks on every time it goes below 40 degrees to keep it at consistently 40 degrees. If we didn't have a heated garage, I probably would still try it out. But I do know that some people, I've talked to a bunch of people who are kind of in my area who have tried sheds, garages. Some people have said it doesn't work, and some people just throw a bunch of stuff on top of them, like blankets, tarps, etc., whatever else it might be, to keep them a little bit more insulated, and they have said that it works. So my situation, I know, is very specific, just happens to work out well for the temperature required for dahlia tubers, but if you don't have a heated garage, you can still try it out anyway. You just might want to insulate them a little bit more. Now, when I store my dahlia tubers, I leave them in the pots, well, I guess for 3 main reasons, really. One, it's the easiest, because then I just bring the pot out when it's warm enough and I don't have to do anything. The plant just grows back. I could, if I wanted to in the spring, dig up the tuber and divide. I might do that to some of these next spring. We'll kind of see how I feel at the time. Hello! Hi, Stevie! The second reason is that keeping them in the pot gives them more insulation. So I have tested out digging up tubers and storing them in vermiculite, and I've tested out keeping the tubers in the pots. I was not on top of checking my tubers over the winter, and the ones in the vermiculite completely dried out and died. However, ignoring these in the pots, they live just fine. So the soil helps give them a little bit of protection from the cold and also helps keep them moist. So other than temperature, moisture is kind of the other factor that comes in with the survival of your tubers. So in my experience, I don't water these. Like, it's already rained on them yesterday. I will check them still just in case like this whole thing dries out and I really think they need water, but typically that doesn't happen. So these are just going to go into the garage and that's it. No extra water, no anything really over the winter. So I will water hydrangeas, I will water rose bushes, I will water my fruit trees. But because these tubers can so easily rot from staying too moist, I don't want to overwater them. It's very similar to tulip bulbs. So the process that I do now is the process that has worked for me for the last 3 winters. So I know that it is effective. In fact, all of these I planted in last year's garden, overwintered them in the garage. 4 pots is the most I've ever overwintered of dahlias. I have 4 here, but I also have 8 out on the back deck. So I'm hoping I have enough room for them. If not, I will just overwinter my favorite varieties. So here's my very simple process. Take the cage out, cut the stalks back. I'll leave a few inches in there. I will scrape out some of the soil, and then I bring this down to the garage and leave it. I will leave it there until early April when I will bring all of the pots that I have just of dahlias inside into our home where it'll probably be like high 60s, low 70s in our home to get them to pre-sprout. So for 5 to 6 weeks, they'll be inside. They will pre-sprout, hopefully, and that's a good way to tell if they did actually survive over the winter, so that when I move these out after our last frost in May, I can have dahlias that are sometimes already this tall, and that just helps them to bloom a little bit sooner. Because they'll be cut back, they don't need sun while they're dormant. None of the plants that drop their leaves are going to need sun while they're dormant. And they really won't need any source of light until they start to sprout again next April. So I'll either put them in front of a window or in front of a grow light until I get them outside. But that's my process. And keeping them in the pots makes it so much easier. There's no digging. Again, unless you want to divide them in spring, it's just cut them down and store them. So that is what we are going to do right now. I'm going to do these 4 first, and then we'll move to the back deck. Now, this is kind of the ideal look for my dahlias when I'm ready to cut them down. You can cut them down when they're a little bit more green. These obviously still have more green on them, but I do that for a couple of reasons. One, if there are green leaves, they are still photosynthesizing, so I will let them absorb as much energy as they can for the tuber next year. And then once the stalks start to die back and look like this, that signals to the tuber that is in the pot to develop a harder skin on the outside of it, which helps protect it from rotting if there's too much moisture over the winter. So this is kind of the ideal. Some of these I'm doing a little bit earlier than I would, but again, out of town, 20 degrees coming. I'm on my schedule a little bit more than Mother Nature's right now. So let me show you how simple this is. I take my pruners, I cut a stalk off, I take my pruners, cut off another stalk, take my pruners, cut off another stalk, and then I'm just going to clean up some of these smaller stems as well, cutting these out. Remove the cage. I will store this out on the deck over winter, and then what I do is I go in and scrape off just maybe the top inch or so of soil in these pots. Why do I do that? I'm glad you asked. 2 or 3 winters ago, I did not scrape the top layer off. And when I brought the pots inside our home to pre-sprout in April, I put them in my office, which is the room connected to this deck. I shut the door just so my cats wouldn't get into the soil and mess it up. And I opened the door one day, and they were in, at that time, beige grow bags. And there was what I thought was dirt all over the outside. And I was thinking, like, did my cats somehow get in here and open and close the door? But then I realized what I thought was dirt was hundreds, if not thousands, of little tiny flies all over the bag. So I ran up to the bag, picked it up, I put it outside. So just in case there are any eggs in here, they should, for the most part, be near the top. So hopefully I'm getting any of those out if there are. And I'm fine if they're outside. I just don't want them inside of my house. So that is why I now remove the top inch. And ever since I've done that, that hasn't happened, but I keep my fingers crossed every year that my house isn't going to be full of little tiny insects. So that's it. This one is ready to go down. That's why I plant my dahlias in either lightweight plastic or resin planters or grow bags, because I have to carry each of these pots down 2 flights of stairs. And so as many dahlias as I have, that's as many trips as I'm going to take. So that should be fun. I will definitely get a leg workout. So now I'm going to finish up the other 4 here, and we'll head out back. See, this one is still so green. I would definitely leave it for a little bit longer, but I don't want the tubers to be damaged from being out in 20-degree weather. They can usually handle like a dip into the 30s, but I don't want it to get too cold and damage the root balls. Now this one has a lot more tiny stems. Maybe this one I will divide next year. Again, these are all in their 2nd year in my garden, and I overwintered them in the garage last year. All right, cage off, and you know what? I might as well pull out the oxalis that is trying to grow in here as well. Now, in the spring, when I move these back out, the only thing I will do is add more soil and then compost, probably granular fertilizer as well, just to give them more nutrients. But that's really it. I don't completely replant them unless I'm going to dig them up and then divide them, but that's really it. That's why I love this method, because it's just so simple. It requires the least amount of work, I feel like, of most of the tasks that I do. These are all of the Dahlia stalks that I just cut off. Now, any of the larger ones like this, I do save. In the past, I've put them inside, let them dry out, and then use them as stakes next year in next year's garden, or sometimes in my houseplants. But this year, what I want to do, because the stems themselves are hollow, I don't know if this will work. I have never tried it before, but I want to make one of those bee hotels and see if I can do that with these stalks. So that might be something I attempt to do over winter. But for now, I'm going to leave this pile here and we're going to go to the back and get those cut down. We are on the back deck now, where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dahlias. Okay, so I need to go downstairs 12 different times. Could be worse. So I'm going to do the exact same process here. Cut the stalks off, take the cages out, and at least since these are in grow bags, these will be much easier to carry down. But same thing, I'm going to leave them in here. These I might check to see if I need to add water, just because the grow bag will dry out faster than a pot, but I still don't think I'm going to have to water any of these over the winter. And then I'll move them back out up here in the grow bag for next year. So same exact process, a little bit of a different container, but still pretty simple. So I'm going to work through these 8, and then I will check back in with you in just a second. I am also leaving the labels in these. Luckily, I did label these. The ones on the front were not what they were labeled as anyway, but I kind of know that they are the red and orange dahlias. But these, I'll leave the label in so that way I know what they are. But 1 down, 7 to go. And because these are only the first year, so I actually planted these in the bags this spring, they're not nearly as large. They don't have nearly as many stems on them as the ones on the front did. So that's it. I'm done. That probably took less than 5 minutes total. So if I was storing them somewhere super close by, I could probably have this done pretty quickly. But since I'm going to take these down, I know I won't take them all down today, because usually after like the 3rd or 4th climb up and down the stairs, I'm a little tired, but I will be going up and down. So I feel like anytime I go down, I will take a bag with me. And let's take a bet on how many of these I will get moved down today. I think there are, I thought they had 8 dahlias back here, but now I only count 7 bags. Unless I'm missing one. Are you a dahlia or a zinnia? No, you're a zinnia. So maybe I just miscounted, but take a guess and then I will catch up with you at the end of the day to show you where I moved these, and then we'll take a count of how many actually made it downstairs. I did 4. There's 1 up there, 3 down there. I don't know if you can see them, but I swear I did 4. So I basically took all the ones from the front deck down. Those are the heaviest ones, and that is good enough for today. Well, I was correct. It was the 3rd trip where I started thinking, do I really need to overwinter my dahlias? I can just leave them on the deck and then buy all new ones next year. But no, I'm going to do it. So I had to carry each of those down 1 by 1. I'm hoping with the grow bags, since there are 7, I can stack at least 2, maybe 3. That might be too greedy. And then that way I don't have to do as many trips down, but we'll see. I'm saving that for tomorrow. So that's how I overwinter my dahlias. I'll link down below all the videos I have about pre-spreading my dahlias, all the dahlia related videos, but this is all that I really do to overwinter them. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.